There was an interview in Variety with two of the new CEOs at PlayStation, Hermen Hulst and Hideaki Nishino. And I wanted to talk about some of the quotes from that piece that I found quite interesting. They talked a lot about the PlayStation 5 Pro, new hardware, and the recent layoffs at the company. Let's discuss that, and let's talk about some of the statements that were made about Xbox that I've seen to compare and contrast where the companies stand. So, first things first, this is from Variety, and Variety's headline is PlayStation CEOs Hideki Nishino and Hermen Hulst reveal how new two business strategy impacts studio console plans exclusive. Now, they do talk a little bit about the recent closure of Concord, and we'll get to that at the end, but it's a bit of a footnote. So let's continue on here and just go to the best quotes that I found somewhat interesting. Long story short, they're happy with the two-pronged approach, but let's read this first quote. At the same time, PlayStation drew praise for platformer Astrobot and has built back cred with fans with the announcement of Ghost of Tsushima's sequel, Ghost of Yotei. The division also is riding high on anticipation for Season 2 of HBO's mega-hit adaptation PlayStation game of The Last of Us and Amazon's new God of War series. Now, why did I highlight this? Well, already we're seeing a bit of a misalignment with what's happening and what they're talking about. So Last of Us going to be great. God of War just had an internal reboot, but I actually think that's because of PlayStation's commitment to quality with their television shows. We have seen fans really like Twisted Metal. We have seen that the Last of Us show has been great. I'm a big fan of the HBO Last of Us show, excited for season 2, and I hope they get God of War right. The fact that they decided to reboot it, I actually think is a good thing. Hulst and Nishino have adopted a show don't tell leadership style at PlayStation. It's important we convey our strategy, says Hulst, but at the end of the day, I am with the creators a big chunk of the time. Now, I think it's so different just looking at how things have been communicated and what has happened under Hermen Hulst and Hideki Nishino, I believe. I'm very familiar with Hermen Hulst. I don't know Nishino as well, so I apologize if I say his name incorrectly. I'll get used to it because he's going to be there for a while, it sounds like. But I think the discrepancy between the two management styles has been quite stark. I know Jim Ryan had like a winning track record. I don't think anything that happened under Jim Ryan was a big L, maybe until the end there when, they overpaid for Bungie and then they had to lay a bunch of people off and then they started closing stuff. I think near the end, the cracks started to show in Jim Ryan's plan as part of the overall industry transitions. But I do have high hope for Hulst and Nishino. Nishino, if you don't know, he's been behind a lot of the hardware successes that the company has seen. And then Hulst has obviously made some amazing games, and he's a gamer first, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the company. Yeah, they had Astrobot this year. A lot of people call me out for my last video where I'm like, well, where's the first party stuff from PlayStation and what's the plan for 2025? I still have those questions. And honestly, thinking about it after reading this article, I think this is more of a part of PlayStation buckling down, figuring out their new roadmap and what they're going to do into 2025. And that's why they basically said, hey, don't expect anything from us for the next year. We need to figure a lot of stuff out right now. Nishino sort of on the same page with their products. To me, the product, the content, it should be forward-facing things, he says, adding I don't know what that word is, behind the scenes, who is the guy doing it? It doesn't matter. So they're very much like, we don't need to be in front of the camera. We will be for investor calls. But long story short, we want to show what we've been creating and not talk about it. Now, what's really unfortunate is this comes at a time where yesterday I talked about the story with Concord. And Concord sort of highlights that PlayStation has adopted this live service strategy that thus far has not been paying off for them quite well. Concord is probably going to go down as one of the biggest mistakes in terms of investment for the video game industry, and just a complete misalignment with what fans' expectations were from a company like that and what was delivered. So if that's their first live service out of the gate, like their first real made from the ground up live service game, that has me very concerned for their plans. So if that's what they're showing, I am a little bit concerned about the live service strategy, and I think a lot of people are with me on this one. We hope they pivot away from that, because what do they do really well? They do those first person, first story player progression experiences really well. And I know Gran Turismo gets a lot of flack because of their early microtransactions. That game is great. They've continually supported it. They've added a lot of cool new stuff throughout the years. They have massive updates. They have massive updates for the PlayStation 5 Pro. I think out of all the games they make, Gran Turismo is the model of how you should do it. You launch, you make some mistakes, you adjust those mistakes, and you move forward from there. Gran Turismo is their best live service game, hands down. If you talk about acquisitions, obviously the situation at Bungie is they're not making the revenue that they need to be to sustain themselves, and they've had to massively change their strategies, and that studio suffered greatly for some 45% revenue misses because of, leadership at Bungie and their mistakes. So it is really interesting to just sort of think about where they are. And I apologize. This is a bit of a tangent, but I don't apologize for saying, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell if you like my content. I do greatly appreciate it. My voice is a little raspy this morning. Sorry. When we were selling PS5 Pro, in addition to the PS4, 20% of customers actually got the PS4 Pro. So that's really interesting. So that means when they were selling both consoles at the same time, 20% of the sales went to the higher end unit. Now you have to remember the PS4 Pro was not that much more expensive. I'm going to be so curious to hear their next earnings call and know how well the PS5 Pro has sold. They're obviously going to talk about it in a positive light, just like Microsoft does about the recent Call of Duty. Call of Duty is obviously a huge success for Microsoft, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. It was not just about highly engaged users. Actually, new users comes to PlayStation to get PS4 Pro as well. So the new hardware would actually drive new users. And that also makes me wonder, we know that Microsoft is going to continue investing in hardware. So when that new hardware launches, like if that handheld rumor is true, I think they are going to see a big influx of users. Xbox is really, really on a hot streak right now, and I wonder if that's going to continue through 2025 as we have these major games that look really exciting to gamers everywhere, like Doom coming right around the corner, that have people really, really hyped. I think there's a lot of great stuff going there, and hearing that PlayStation gains new users from new hardware like that, imagine what a handheld could do that you can actually take everywhere for a company like Xbox. Phones are updating every year. PCs are updating every year. I don't think we go every year updates, but there are things we can package together to bring the greatest things into game console segment range. So that's the vision. So what's really interesting is they have this old philosophy just about how the industry works. They're like, you should refresh every few years and you need to, make a new console. They were planning, and they talk about it in this piece, they were planning the PS5 Pro before the PlayStation 5 launched. So this has always been a part of their strategy. I don't think it's going to change in the near future. And like when the PS6 comes out, there's going to be a PS6 Pro, etc. Like year 3, usually the conversation around gaming, the console comes down. So people are shifting the conversation more to next gen or something like that. You know what's really interesting? When they talked about that in the piece, I found that is absolutely true. Even I started talking about that. One of my biggest videos on the YouTube channel was when I was talking about the PlayStation 5 new spec rumors. And I believe at that time it was about the new hardware that was getting developed. But what did it turn out to be? It turned out to be, new hardware. And then that conversation just bubbled up from there. So he's right. Yeah, about 3 years into a new console cycle, everybody starts talking about new hardware. We're seeing it on the Xbox front. Even Xbox is on stage talking about that. And it's something I never noticed before, but it's absolutely true. They do start thinking about the next gen of consoles. It's not like we just make a next step and we don't know about the 2 steps ahead. That's not our way of working, because we need to make sure that the 10-year-old generation cycle continues to be going well. So one problem with that is if they've planned out that far into the future, that probably makes pivoting hard. They're a big ship. Big ships are hard to steer. They take longer, and I do wonder if they're adapting to a lot of the more modern strategies much slower than other people. I guess time will tell there. And all of that is to inspire third party. They're talking about their hardware and what it does. Obviously, for the business to inspire what you can do and what's the quality bar for these short showcases. And that's in addition to finding the incremental additional revenue streams or opportunities to leverage in film, in television and merchandise, and location-based entertainment and wherever else. They're talking about diversifying their portfolio. Where can we make a little bit more money? How can we showcase our game in more places? How can we bring in new people or get third-party developers really excited about the PlayStation 5, for example, with the Pro? And what does that mean in terms of diversifying our portfolio of games? Nishino says, I just want to say that the Pro is not a next gen. It is still the PS5 generation. The PS5 Pro will do everything that PS5 does. So it's a consumer choice. If they see a need for more visually, what? If they see a need for more visuality, anyway, they will get it. So we wanted to provide an option for the consumer within the generation. That's what we're doing. And then finally, they did talk a little bit about their television progress. I think going forward, we will become increasingly meticulous and rigorous about our franchising. And that's why I said, okay, we got the God of War news recently about how God of War was getting an internal reboot. And why did that happen? I think it's because Sony PlayStation basically said, this isn't up to snuff. We need to revisit some things. Let's revisit it. And that spells good things for the show, in my opinion. So I'm all for that anytime. And last, I said it would be a footnote about the layoffs. Basically responding to the question, they said, I will say a few things on that. It's our duty to look at our resource planning and make sure that we run a sustainable business. That's part of being CEO. We never take that lightly because we know these people personally, and it's very close to our hearts and the teams and good working atmospheres. But yes, we've had some layoffs, but it's also important to realize that on the content side, PlayStation Studios is now a much bigger organization than when it started. It's grown tremendously, and that is organic growth that our existing teams, I think, hired quite aggressively, as well as through M&A. So the organization, the employment is much greater now than it was, let's say, for example, 5 years ago. So yeah, they're doing M&A. That obviously offsets some of their expenses when they do that. But what's curious is they have had a lot of layoffs. Are the bets that they're making the right ones? Now, I said I would contrast this with some statements from Microsoft. So here's some of the stuff I pulled out of their annual report. All these statements are from there. Growth of our gaming business is determined by the overall active user base through Xbox-enabled content, availability of games, providing exclusive game content that gamers seek, the computational power and reliability of the devices used to access our content and services, and the ability to create new experiences. So they're focusing on a lot of the same things that PlayStation is. However, I would argue that I do think Xbox and Microsoft have been quicker to diversify their portfolio, and with services like their cloud services, I do think they are ahead of where PlayStation is with delivery there. And Game Pass, their subscription service, obviously trounces what PlayStation offers because PlayStation doesn't have to offer as much. This is why I say competition is good, because at the end of the day, the consumers wind up reaping the benefits. Our goal is to lead the industry in several distinct areas of technology over the long term, which we expect will translate to sustained growth. We are investing significant resources in investing new gaming experiences that bring people together around their shared love for games on any devices and pushing the boundaries of innovation with console and PC gaming. And on the gaming front, they did say focuses on developing hardware, content, and services across a large range of platforms to help grow our user base through game experiences and social interaction. It's interesting that even in this recent annual report, they are talking about the new hardware. We know they have the most powerful console coming. I'm really excited, hoping that they announce a handheld. And then finally, a big statement here. Gaming. We are bringing games to more people on more devices. With our acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, which closed October, we've added hundreds of millions of players to our ecosystem. We now have 20 franchises that have generated over $1 billion in lifetime revenue. Candy Crush, Diablo, Halo, Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, Gears of War. And with Xbox Cloud Gaming, we continue to innovate to offer players more ways to experience the games they love, where, when, and how they want. Finally, we brought 4 of our fan favorite titles to Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation for the first time as we continue to extend our content to new platforms. So not only will they still be making exclusive content, but they are looking at, hey, what are we going to bring to other platforms? The question is, what is that landscape going to look like over the next several months? So a really interesting interview from PlayStation. A lot of that sentiment is echoed at Microsoft. I do find it interesting about the overlap, and I am excited to see where both of these companies go. On the PlayStation front, I just want to know more about their roadmap for 2025, because to me, it does still feel light. Sure, they had Astrobot or whatever. That's great. I'm glad they had Astrobot. I've heard nothing but positive things about that game. Where's the Wolverine game? Like, Destin wants to know about the Wolverine game. I want to know about their core franchises. It's cool that they have the Astro hits for this year. I want to know where things are going, though. So excited to learn more about that, and I hope you are too. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when my content goes live. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Thanks so much for the members. If you do like my content, you can support this channel directly by becoming a member. You just click that join button right at the bottom. Thank you so much to everybody who has joined and supported the channel. I do appreciate it. I'm going to get out of here, but if you want to see my video yesterday about how Call of Duty did amazingly well for Microsoft, it is a huge win for them, and it's a win for gamers everywhere, in my opinion, because it's a great game. I play it a little bit too much right now. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm going to get out of here. I'll see you for the next one.